Hey guys, it's funny how sometimes when you're shaving, you'll piggyback things onto each other. And I've been using this Loyal, the Silk Tallow base from Chiseled Face. And this is the Loyal scent, which I thoroughly enjoy. And that has been my consistent guy because I'm experimenting with how much soap it takes to get a good lather. I believe I achieved that the last two shaves, and the last one was just to confirm that. And 3/4 of a teaspoon at or above 3 times what most other soaps need to put into the lather. So it's not going to be economical. And maybe in terms of uses per tub, this may be one of the more expensive ones out there. But as I was talking to somebody online, I figured out the math, and if I use 3/4 teaspoon per shave at 4 ounces, if we're talking about an ounce being in terms of volume, but an ounce may actually be with these in terms of weight, and so there could be a problem with that calculation. We're looking at about a month of shaves, and for this one tub. Now, granted, it's you know, that's a month. Most of them will give you 3 months, and Stirling gives me a year. The original Chiseled Face formula gives me a year as well. And so, but however, if you have even just a small rotation of 7 soaps, then that is like 2 months past half a year for this the soap base. And I really enjoy the soap base. I like everything about it. It could be maybe a little less kind of a micro bubbly, but that's really just for your eyeballs because it feels great. It performs well with the razor, and so it's great in all respects to me. And so I've been playing around with this guy, and today we're going to play around with him again. We're going to do that same 3/4 load, 3/4 of a teaspoon. What's the variation we're going to introduce this time? Last time it was just a confirmation of the previous time where we started out with 3/4. Okay, today, since we know we can get good from 3/4, we have been using this honkin' big. It might actually be just a 24 millimeter, but it's huge. It's bigger than most of my 26 millimeters in terms of the bloom. Stirling High Mountain White. Today we're going to see how a much smaller brush does with that same amount. My theory is I had about 2 passes left over at the end of yesterday's shave. Maybe I'll have 3 passes left over at the end of today's, just because not as much soap fits in this knot as fits in this knot. But I think in general, it should give us the same. So let me get this Boar back in the soaker cup. I think he'll have maybe half an hour of soaking by the time I get to him. I did start him soaking earlier. And we're going to continue with yesterday's playing with this timeless scalloped bar 68 with a smooth top cap and barber pole handle. It shaved well yesterday with the Persona Israeli Red. I'm going to bring in my Gillette Silver Blue, one of my favorites that just has worked well with me and so many other razors. And this is just one I'm cycling through, use about 10 or 12 times and then throw it away. And this is not my marathon Gillette Silver Blue. All right, now with Timeless, alignment is a piece of cake. There is a Weber Bulldog handle that I think looks really good on these timeless razors. It's definitely not as thick as this one. And then Maggard makes a version similar to that Bulldog. I think it's the MR2, but I can't remember for sure. It's a little shorter than this handle, I think. and I think it looks great, and of course performs really well with this one as well. And it's cheaper, so if you manage to get a hold of a timeless head and you want an inexpensive handle to hold you off until you can maybe afford a real timeless handle, or if that makes you happy, you don't have to buy a timeless handle. All right, then it'll work great. And of course, I've already talked about the Loyal being the soap for today. And this soap, maybe because it's all the moisturizers. See, I think you have to use so much product because he added so many face goodies, skin food, sometimes we call it. Moisturizers, oils and butters and those kind of things. And you can see it's not even, I haven't put water in this for 4 days and it's still got that wet spot in the middle. I don't think there's anywhere for the water to go. It's like water trying to absorb into oil, you know? All right, so what I'm gonna do now is scooping. I'm gonna get 3 of these 1/4 teaspoons, and let's just make sure, yep, 1/4 teaspoon. Just making sure I'm not imagining things and I haven't been operating off the wrong premise for so long. And we're going to put 3 of them in the bottom of my bowl. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm probably going to be sniffing during this episode. I don't know, allergies, I don't really know why. And this is the last bit of soap that I hooked out of my spoon here. I've done this twice already, so this is the 3rd 1/4 teaspoon. And I've just been putting the other 2 in these little quadrants. Help me to keep count. It's pretty soft, and you don't have to be as conscientious about spreading it thin so that it doesn't come loose, because this is soft enough where it will get absorbed even if it comes loose. I didn't have any problem with that the last few shaves. And today, no, this is about a 24-hour shave, I think. I don't think I missed one, did I? I don't think so. All right. Now with this 1800, I did put an O-ring because it was starting to splay open a little bit more than I wanted. This brush doesn't hold too much water because there's just not that many bristles like there is with that Stirling Badger brush. I think it's the 1250 that is so similar as the 1800. The 1800 has the printed band, the dyed band of black, and I believe it's the 1250 that has no band at all. The 1800 is neat. It is a mix of the grades. Not too many of the Semogue brushes have a mix of grades. I think the premium hair, I think it's got a smaller percentage of premium hair, and then the other kind of hair, I'm going to guess it's the best, but it could be the extra. I'm not sure. If you're really into Semogues, get on Google and search Semogue brush chart or Semogue brush table, and look for a long vertical. I'm sure somebody did it in Excel. It's a spreadsheet, but I think it's a screen capture of an Excel spreadsheet. And it shows all of these guys. And it's from back in 2008, and so it doesn't show anything new, but it shows a lot of their inventory, even the ones that are available now. It shows a lot of still current ones are in the mix, and so it is still pretty relevant. But what it most was helpful to me in was telling me about the 3 grades of hair, well, 4. At the top you've got premium, then I believe it's best, and then at the bottom it's extra. And then later on they added another grade which is special, and they used that on the Semogue Owners Club, because it was a special run of hair that they found, and then it was so popular it seems like they made it into a regular offering. And so it'll tell you what percentage this 1800 is. Now if I got a good consistent mix last time, and my brush didn't really have any concentrate or anything in the brush that made things weird, that was not where it wasn't a good consistent mix. If I had too much soap in my brush, or if I had too much water, then my ratio here might be a little off. But if everything was consistent, then the same ratio of water to soap, although this one doesn't hold as much water as the Stirling Badger does because it's such a bigger knot. So I might have to compensate for that. So you could expect this maybe to need a little bit more water for the same mix. Because my theory is that if you get a good consistent mix all the way through, and it really doesn't matter what size brush you have, the brush isn't going to hog the lather if you get good circulation. It might contain more lather, but it's not going to swallow any of it up and not give it up, like if you squeeze it out. And there's 3 teaspoons, and that's almost what we used last time. So I'm curious. I think we used 3 1/4 last time. Does seem to be plenty. This brush has been comfy for a while now. It's in its maybe 25th use now. This little Boar brush, and size-wise, it just doesn't compare to the big the big Badger High Mountain White from Stirling. But these make really good brushes, and they're cheap. That Stirling brush is going to set you back like $54 or $57. This guy maybe $15. And he's soft. He's gotten to that comfy phase definitely within the first maybe 7 or 8 uses. I was soaking him about an hour before use. That's the only thing I did. Lukewarm water. He broke in quickly, and then now I'm just waiting for his tips to split more fully each time. And that just means he's going to get better and better. Lather's looking good. Let's go with that. All right. I said before that I enjoy brush loading from the tub more than scooping. Scooping's more precise if you do it with a measuring spoon. Scooping's also neater because it keeps your tub just looking like, scraped butter instead of having foam and residue and stuff in it. But to me, in general, the act of picking up your soap tub and loading with a brush just kind of seems more manly, more part of a visceral experience. And so that's what I generally do. And unless I'm doing an experiment like this, or if I'm using this soap base, you better believe I'm just going to scoop and not try to brush load. I could play around with it more and figure out a good brush loading time. But you know what? When you're looking at it, maybe a 2-minute brush load, then the water that's in play really matters a good bit. With that many revolutions and all that, then little things matter. If you don't happen to have as much water, then that could really throw things off. Now the good news is you can just keep an eye on it, and something I was playing around with, an idea in my head was Just watch it and add a little bit more water if you need to, if it starts to look too dry. Too much water can slow down absorption and pickup of the soap. Not enough slows it down as well. But I don't think it's a small window. I think as long as you keep it reasonably kind of foamy looking, a little bit foamy, then you're good. You're in the right spot. Now, of course, this guy doesn't feel at all like that badger, but they are, the tips are not going to give me razor rash, anything like that. Very soft, and it's actually nice. You get more, I get more action. I get more movement, circular movement with this brush since it's smaller. It's starting to get a little bit more pasty, and that's something that can happen. If you start off with a lather that's a little too wet, then if you just keep going with it for a few minutes, it can start getting more pasty as the water kind of evaporates from you're working the lather in. I'm just going to go ahead and stop right here. I'm not going to add any more water to it. Oh, the smell as usual, man. Oh, this loyal. So good. Very enjoyable. Take away the part so I don't overshave in areas that might nick me. There's some guys that clear away the part near their sideburns where they don't want to, where they want to be able to see and trim properly. I don't care quite that much if I hit or miss. As long as I'm close, it's fine with me. All right, Gillette Silver Blue. Maybe 8 or 9 uses on it. Man, I got a comment recently from, I believe his name was Kirk, and I meant to recheck that. Now, by the time you see this, it will be a few days back, but he was telling me how he enjoyed my shaves, and I really appreciate those kind words. And it's especially because he is recovering from COVID. And I'm really happy that he said they, on the calming side, I'm really happy about that because that's kind of my intention. I like to think of you guys as my friends, and I'm just talking to my friends about shaving and stuff. Sometimes I get a little on the Ron radio side, obsessed with the sound of my own voice. And then I hopefully rein myself in. Nobody likes that. Wonderful. Did well. I've still got that zit down there. I think I've had that for like a week. I'm glad I didn't add any more water to that first pass because it didn't need any more. Had great glide. It didn't feel scratchy or dry at all. This base, for me, for how I like it, just needs to be run a little drier than I normally do. All right, so here's what we got. We're going to load our brush up again. You're definitely going to have plenty of lather, and if you were using a smaller Boar, a smaller brush like this one on a regular basis, then maybe half a teaspoon, you know? You're not going to need 3/4 of a teaspoon for each time. And I was also just curious, I didn't think it would, but I was curious to see if somehow the very different brush might mix up a different kind of lather. Lather consistency, maybe fewer bubbles, more bubbles, you know, who knows? I was just curious, and it's the same lather. Kind of expected that to be the case. Now we're going to go cross grain. And this blade, I do feel the edge just a touch, but I love this razor. It just works so well for me. All of a sudden it hit me that I hadn't been using it very much. And you guys, you viewers often chime in and say, hey, what's your top 4 razors? Or top 5, or what's your favorite? I can almost never list a favorite. It's too much mental work for me to try to figure out, because there are just several that I really enjoy, and that applies to soaps and razors and brushes as well. And so usually when somebody asks me what my favorite is, I'll give you back a list of about 4. Something like that, 3, 4, 5, whatever. When I start to narrow down the list and I get to the last grouping and they're so hard to figure out which one might be the top one, and that's when I stop and I give you the list. All right, well, see, that went quickly, very comfortably, no irritation at all. So far, it's definitely a better blade for me and my skin than the Israeli red that we used yesterday in this same razor. This is really a perfect consistency here for me. It is sometimes dripping off my razor. I've had to be conscious about that. But it's still very creamy. Just pretty much perfect. Okay, third pass. And right, this is very soft. This brush. Now, some people who are into larger brushes, you're not going to want to buy a Semogue that's like this one. You might, if you're into a Boar, you might like the 2000 or the Semogue Owners Club. Those have much larger, more badger-sized splays. But these little guys, I mean, they still get the job done. You can see very easily, and they work easily around corners and things like that. And it's going to get more dense. As the tips split, what's right now is one fiber is going to be maybe 5 fibers in a year. Of course, the way I'm having to go slow and cycle through all of them, it might take longer, but it's a fun journey. It felt kind of wiry a little bit on that first pass because it was having to move around the stubble. But once all that's mowed down, the second and third pass, oh man, it's almost as soft as a badger sometimes. It's got great flow through because, as you saw, it's not a dense brush at all. And so there's plenty of room for lather and water to go through it, quick to clean. And you really do kind of develop a relationship with your boars as you watch them grow, and as you just see them get softer and softer, and you remember how they used to be in the beginning, and you're like, what, this sucks, you know. And then all of a sudden you keep using them and they just change, and they open up more, and the tips split, and so each of those tips, as they divide, that takes that one rigid thing and makes it 4 or 5, 3 soft things, you know. Wonderful, neat thing. And to have all that happen, sometimes for just $10, $15, it's terrific. Kirk, I'm sorry if I'm messing up your name, but I think it was Kirk. And I hope that you recover. All the best of speedy wishes. I'll pray for you. Hope for a good, quick recovery, and one where you're just restored completely. And that even as you're recovering, that it will be a good one. Without as many serious troubles as can sometimes happen with those kind of illnesses, you know. All right. That was a great shave. I don't have any irritation at all. So this is definitely a smoother blade for my skin than the Israeli red. Now, some people swear by the reds, and I can see why, because there are a few razors that I used it with, where it functioned perfectly. Smooth and comfortable and close cutting. And so sometimes it just depends on what your favorite razors are. And then your own skin, of course, and your own beard and your own lathering technique, all its variables go in to figure out what blades might work well for you. And so that's why you've got guys on the forums that say Israeli reds are the best things ever, or they're the sharpest, and another guy says they're the smoothest. And you know, it's all just subjective. Try them all, keep track, write them down, try them all a few times with your different razors, because one razor might have one favorite, another razor might have another favorite. Yeah, skin feels great. What am I going to do post-shave today? Let's see. Yeah, I went and checked during the break right there. I did a good rinse, and it's Kirk. I was remembering correctly, so very good. I'm glad. And now Kirk, he was also mentioning that his sense of smell was gone, of course, with COVID. And that hit me. You know what? If you're not worried about smell, maybe this is a great time, if you're able to. I don't know if COVID has just got you having to rest all the time, but if you're able to shave, then why don't you focus on some soaps that maybe have light scents, but you just enjoy them somehow, you know, to where your nose doesn't really come into play, or soaps that you have that you don't enjoy the smell as much, but you keep them around for some reason and you like the way they perform or something like that. Or if you want to do some tests or something like that, then maybe now's a good time where you're not trying to impress your nose with your shaves. And this is a Stirling Balm. I have oily skin. And so I don't need a whole lot. I'm really curious if I get to be an old dude now that I've been shaving this way using a balm for 3 or 4 years now. And I'm really curious if I'm going to have better skin in my cheek and neck area, if I'm going to have less wrinkles because of this daily moisturization that I'm doing. I've been told that there's a saying, black don't crack. Our dark skinned brothers and sisters, many of those men have such great skin and faces when they're very old. And somebody was saying, and it was either a person of color or something, they were saying that, well, it's because of the necessity of establishing a skin moisturization routine. It's not with white folks, it's kind of optional in a sense. We don't necessarily need it per se. And but with people with darker skin, it's more of a necessity. And so they do it from the beginning. And so then maybe that's exactly why they look so great when they're older, and they just don't have this old skin that we white folks do. And so I'm curious if I'm going to have a little bit better skin with my shaved area now that I'm doing balms and things like that. All right, well, there we go. This was Tuscany. Really like this in the aftershave balm and in the soap. In the splash, it's almost a different scent. The cypress comes out a lot more, and the sweetness is a little bit more muted in the aftershave. That's just the way it goes sometimes with the different mediums of products. All right, well, let's look at what is left over, and pretty much what I said about 3 passes. I had 2 passes left over with the big brush, So the smaller brush, there's less to fit in the brush, and it's pretty much, 2 or 3 passes right here. So small boar brush, big badger brush, doesn't really matter. You get good consistent lather, and it's going to be the same no matter what brush you use. So there's my little fibers, and we're going to, as always with these wooden Semogue handles, I never submerge them prior to the shave when I'm soaking them. I only do the bristles. And then we will give it a good clean. So it's starting to look more like that. And then this is what it looks like after a good rinse. And then I make sure always to dry the handle. It is treated with some type of product to protect it, but I want to make sure that I make it last a nice long time. And so now we'll go over and strop it on the towel. And this is what it looks like after that. The hair is still clumping just a little bit because it is still kind of moist. Some of the tips have definitely split. You can see it's got a decent little splay there. I believe this is one of the Semogue models that has the metal ring, and it's actually a cone-shaped thing that's in there, and that actually helps to keep these side bristles splayed out at an angle instead of going straight up, and it helps to promote a good splay. And then eventually I think we're just going to get more and more whiteness right here as these tips just keep on splitting. But right now it's a nice little size. You can see, even right now it takes up a good bit of my cheek, and so I don't think it's too small at all. And this shape of the handles of the Semogues is a wonderful, wonderful, comfortable yet small and portable shape that fits even my big hands. Very good. Now we'll let it dry, and then he'll be ready for the next shave. My recommendation is if you want to break in a boar brush, you can soak it for a little while before the shave, maybe an hour. If you want to kind of accelerate the break-in a little bit. If you want it to do it nice and easy, just use it. Just use it like normal in the beginning. Don't be concerned at all if you have to go back to the soap tub and get some more soap for that pass. That's normal for a young boar brush. And once my Semogues have all gotten to either 5 to 15 uses, I no longer had to go back before each pass. And I was able to pick up enough soap, and it would hold enough soap and work in the bowl and work on my face in a comfortable way, where from that point on, I was able to just enjoy it and just anticipate those tips splitting and it getting softer and softer. And it's so funny how boar brushes, here's another one by Semogue with that same kind of shaped handle. It's just kind of their trademark. Their brushes, the bristles of the Semogues are so firm when they're dry. That's because the boar bristles absorb water. Unlike badgers absorb a little bit. Synthetics, of course, absorb 0. But boars absorb a good bit of water, and that affects their behavior. All of a sudden, they were once stiff, but now they feel very soft. And it does not feel this way when it's dry. All right. All right, guys. Oh, yeah, Tuscany is smelling good. Very nice. Well, so my theory was pretty much right. We had a good, consistent integration between water and soap these last couple of times. And so that 3/4 teaspoon and roughly 3 teaspoons of water was a good mix for a huge badger and a medium-sized boar brush. They both work just as well. It's just that this guy retained a little bit of the lather in him, but that's okay. At the end of the shave, it was available if I needed it. I don't do it very often because I usually have so much left in my boar brush. You can just squeeze up like that, and then that wonderful little lather will come out the top like that, and then you can do that. I think face lathers do it a lot because when they get to that third pass, they are trying to find some soap because it's all going down the drain. And that's one of the disadvantages of the face lathering technique. And so, but not too bad if you can squeeze out of the brush and get that. And it's usually really creamy. You know why? Because it is a different consistency than what they've used so far. Anyway, very good. The GSB blade worked great in the Timeless. The brush felt really nice. So that's the 1800 from Semogue. And then we had the Tuscany Balm. Great shave. All right, Kurt, many speedy get wells to you and all you other guys who might be dealing with an illness or COVID. I sure hope these videos help you out in some way. Blessings and prayers out to you guys. Oh, that's right. Hey, you know what? We can all watch the Super Bowl on Sunday. For those of us who are in America or have access to American channels elsewhere in the world, it's our American football big old championship here this coming Sunday. And it's a big deal usually for most people in America. And so I'm going to go hang out with my kids and watch that. So let's all enjoy doing that on Sunday. And I hope there's been other good stuff in this shave to help you guys out. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves. Good night.